Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Everyday Night. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jeff.
And Jeff, that thing,
That thing?
the thing with the guy,
Oh, you mean not
in,
that? You mean that thing, not the other
that
thing?
thing, yeah, in the
Yeah,
place, in that
in that
place
place with that stuff.
with
Yeah,
the stuff, yeah.
yeah. How do you feel about that?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, I'll have to get back to you
I
on
see.
the flip side. There are other considerations and nuances that the other guy in the other place with the other thing. So, you know,
Yeah. So hypothetically,
yeah. Well, I don't deal with hypotheticals. So,
right.
so,
So if in case you haven't figured out what we're doing, what we're talking about this evening is um, manipulative underspecification.
yes, under specificity in speech. So it is talking without saying anything. It's using weasel words. It's using generalities. It's avoiding direct answers to questions, direct speech. And so
It's
that's what
you.
we're gonna,
Yeah. It's
that's,
using ambiguous language to avoid uh, actually being truthful,
yes,
or at least, um, as we will see, it's sometimes when you're trying to manipulate somebody, it's the using ambiguous speech is in a way to draw them out, get their opinion so that you can mirror it and get a positive response from
exactly.
them.
So in that vein, um, you look thirsty. Are you thirsty?
Well,
Is it do you believe in being thirsty? Is it thirsty something that,
if you were thirsty right now, what would you be drinking? Well,
oh,
I
I
would,
was,
in fact, be
yeah.
drinking. And I'm going to answer with Grice's maxim as truthfully and succinctly as possible.
Yes, which we will get to Grice's, the Gricean
Yes.
maxims. Yes.
This is sort of my go-to 1792 bourbon with some cherry bitters, maple cherry. No, what was it? It's a maple cherry bitters and fever tree ginger beer.
Yeah, pretty good.
And what's in your glass, monsieur?
Well, I have, and this is one of my go-tos in summer. It is Absolute Juice. It's a pear and elderflower vodka with some lemon juice and fever tree light tonic water.
No,
Very refreshing. My little metal straw here. Um, so cheers.
your health.
Mm. So this topic came up um, in as a there's a philosopher who uh, came up with this term manipulative underspecification. Justin D'Ambrosio, and I've we looked at his paper, and it is an academic, a dense
Oh man, God, there.
academic paper. Um, but the In conversation, speakers often felicitously underspecify the content of their speech acts, leaving audiences uncertain about what they mean. Yes, I can hear it. Um,
Right. And reading his paragraphs left me uncertain what he was trying to say.
well, it's academic language. That's one of the criticisms of academic writing, is that it is um, it is wordy, and the words they're absolutely valid words, but it is unclear sometimes to the meaning is somewhat unclear. So in some academic old school academic writing, and there's been an effort over the years to teach people how to write more clearly in academia, in business, and so on. And it's one of the ongoing challenges because people fall into certain patterns of writing and speaking using jargon. There were many times in the corporate world the speeches would be so full of jargon as to be almost meaningless. Jargon is one way that people recognize other professionals. It's a shibboleth.
Yes.
Jargon is a shibboleth, and which is a word that only people who have special knowledge can pronounce. It
Well,
was
it
a,
struck me as I was
so,
reading the paper that he had found a handful of words that meant to him exactly what he was trying to say.
Mhm.
So he kept using those words over and over again, whether or not his audience understood them as he did. They were the exact right words to use, and so he was going to use them because that way, in his, I think in his own mind, he was saying exactly what he meant.
yes, and I think that one of the principles of communication is that it's not about how you want to say it, it's about how the people you're communicating to need to hear it in order to understand it. And so the but he was writing for an academic audience, so that's completely understandable that he would write that way. But it's far easier to say weasel words and talk
Yeah,
about those than it is. But man, weasel words sometimes aren't manipulative. They are, and a lot of times they are. But it can be conversational lubrication. It can be the sort of thing. Well, I don't want to say no. I don't want to say. Let's just keep the conversation going. I don't want to have a confrontation. I don't want to. We'll just the conversational equivalent of a white lie or something. Wow,
well,
you sure put a lot of work into that. That sure is interesting.
yeah,
I was asked by some colleagues once who were going to an art show by the their boss's spouse, and they came to me and they said, "What do we say if it? What we don't know what to say, how to talk about it if we don't like it? If we," I said, "Well, how about this? Look at it, consider it seriously, lower your eyebrows and put your chin, look at it seriously, and then say it's evocative without being derivative." And they said, "Oh, that's great." And well, that actually does mean something, but in that context, they could use it
right,
not they're not trying to manipulate the person, they're just trying not to offend.
right, yeah,
So there's, and we've talked about not, was it a gentleman is someone who doesn't offend unintentionally.
right,
So, um,
right.
so yeah, I think
Well,
his paper, and I'm gonna reread it and
well,
digest it because
at the beginning of the paper, he talks about, and I thought this was kind of useful, that there under specificity, right, happens all the time. There's
yeah,
vagaries of conversation are not necessarily bad. That sometimes it just like as you say, the conversation keeps it short, but as long as both interlocutors understand the context, and that's another word he kept saying, he kept using that word as another word. It's like the interlocutor,
yes,
why use a two-syllable word when a four-syllable word will suffice? But um, he said these happen all the time, and sometimes it's just a sort of shorthand of conversation, and relies a great deal on context
yeah,
and a shared context, a shared knowledge between two. people having a conversation. And that's fine. That's okay. Underspecificity happens all the time and it's expected and there's no evil in it.
Right. Right.
What we are talking about in particular is using this kind of ambiguous language to manipulate a conversation.
Yes. Yes. Manipulative. And that is the key. When so often and we see it in political speech a lot because so often they're trying to appeal to politicians are they're trying to appeal to a broad swath of people who don't necessarily agree with each other, but they're trying to speak in a way that lets people come away feeling like that person was agreeing with them, that politician's agreeing with their opinion, rather than the politician saying, "Here's what I stand for. See if you agree with me." You know,
Right.
and there's a concept that a writer came up with years ago called the manic pixie dream girl. And it's a trope in movies. A young, vivacious woman with an outgoing personality, the and a kind of a trope in overused trope in literature and in movies and TV. The thing about that particular kind of character is that people could impose on that character what they thought that who they thought that character was. And
Mm.
that's something, it's like manic, bloated nightmare politicians. It's the equivalent, somebody who they speak in vagaries and they want you to impose your understanding on the weasel words that they use to think that they are agreeing with you, whereas they're not saying anything of substance.
Well, I think that's I think always, at least in my lifetime, been a hallmark of political speech. But I think modern political speech has less to do with trying to gather a larger consensus and more to do with avoiding accountability.
Yeah, yeah,
Saying things, promising something without actually promising anything, and being able to later downstream say, "Well, I didn't say that."
yeah.
I think that's what
Oh, that's
bothers
not what
me.
that's not what was meant by that.
Yeah, no, I didn't
How,
mean that.
yeah, how many times it seems to happen daily, hourly, where a politician will say something and then their team puts out a press release saying, "Yeah, you're interpreting it this way, but this is what it actually meant." Well, no, this is what I heard. No, but that's not what it meant. The words don't mean what you think they mean. I don't think that means what you think it means.
Well, or the sort of Orwellian, uh, you know, war is peace, and
Yeah.
there's there's no reality except what we tell you is reality.
Yeah, don't who do you believe, us or your lying eyes and ears,
Yeah,
right?
right,
Um,
right.
so, and some, most, probably, quite, somehow, somewhat,
Many, everyone.
virtually, many, everyone, lots of people,
Hmm.
lots of people. Name
Everybody's
one.
saying this.
Everybody. Yeah, name them. Name someone.
I hear this all the time.
Yes. Um, uh, it is thought. Some people say, yeah. Um,
Even things like it's generally accepted is pretty deniable
yes. Yeah. Um,
because you're not
and
even saying that's the truth. You're just saying it's generally accepted as the truth. You're not claiming there, you don't have any, evidence necessarily or
and
particular facts to back it up.
I've seen something even more pernicious in some ways that when confronted with the falsity of a statement that was made, that was affirmative, that was definitive and was a statement, they will then come back and say, present their own evidence and say, no, lots of people say agree with me, and no, I don't. You're fake. They'll turn it around and say, no, what you're saying is fake. What you're saying is
Mhm.
not true. You see that with climate change and with other. You see it with flat Earth. You see
Oh,
it
geez.
with uh, um, young Earth, flat Earth, all sorts of stuff like that. So, whereas people are not willing to be corrected, and we talked
Right.
about before that it is one when somebody makes a decision, they often become emotionally invested in the correctness of the decision they've
Hmm.
made, and they will do almost anything to avoid cognitive dissonance, to avoid the conflict between what they think and new evidence. So they will
Yeah.
often simply reject new evidence. And but then they're claiming they're viewing their own rejection of new evidence as a virtue.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
This is a sort of a modern problem. I mean, I guess it's always existed, but it seems when you are when when the internet was born, everybody thought this will be great. Look at all the information we'll have access to at the
Hmm.
tip of our fingers. But yeah, now you've got equal access to the worst information
Yes.
at the same time, and there's no filter. There's no way to determine what's right and what's wrong if you don't have some kind of real grounding.
Well, and I've certainly seen who are you going to don't believe these experts just because they have a degree.
Right.
I read this other thing on the internet. They're hiding the truth from you. And so you mentioned Orwell and uh, doublespeak, newspeak,
Hmm.
rather, newspeak, because doublespeak is another word for weasel words. You mentioned newspeak, war is peace and uh, up is down.
Servitude is freedom.
Right. But the other dystopian novel by Aldous Huxley, Brave New World,
Hmm.
had a different take on things, on what we thought was the future, but seems to be the present day. That whereas Orwell said, "Well, the information, the truth will be hidden from you," Huxley said, "No, it'll be there. It'll just be lost
Nobody
in
will,
the
nobody will be
cacophony."
interested in it.
Yeah, it'll be lost in the cacophony of noise and bullshit and entertainment and other stuff, so that finding it, and that's become the challenge, is weeding through all that dreck
Hmm.
and finding the information. What are your trusted sources? There's and I don't know how many times it's so many times it's happened. Somebody will post something, I'll say, well, here's a fact checking source. Here's another fact checking source. There's another fact checking source. Here's a video of a person. No, those fact checking sources are biased. I don't trust the video. It's like, well, what are your sources? And I've asked people this. What are your sources of information? I listen to follow guys on the internet, right? There are
Hmm.
podcasters who also use weasel words, and I'll say like Joe Rogan, who's the number has the biggest podcast following
Right.
in the world. He'll say, "I'm just asking questions. I'm not saying one way. I'm just asking questions." Yeah, but the questions you're asking are giving a platform to people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about,
Right.
or know that they're spreading misinformation. So,
If you
um,
ask a question and then let somebody say anything they want without challenge, you are supporting that view.
yes, yeah, you've given
So,
them an opening to do
right.
that.
You can't just abrogate responsibility,
Yes.
by saying, "Well, I didn't say that." No, but
Yeah.
you broadcast it.
So I think, there are ways for us to, and we only have control over our own behavior, but if we're going to follow the virtues of honesty and justice
Well,
and
and courtesy
and courtesy
and courage.
and courage, we will speak the truth and cite, follow the facts and speak clearly, um, because that's the way to communicate honestly. Now, and I've mentioned this before, that I have heard people say that, and people said this to me, that people who are courteous are dishonest, that courtesy is a smokescreen for dishonesty, that they favor brutal honesty. And I said, well, in my experience, people who favor brutal honesty are 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 emphasizing the brutal part,
Yeah.
not the honest part.
They're more interested in being brutal than they are in being honest.
Yes. So it is certainly possible to be honest and courteous at the same time. And that is one of the things about the virtues, is doing all of them, wearing all of them simultaneously. Uh, so it's possible to do that. Um, and sometimes that's by things left unsaid. Um, but which is another point. Not everybody has to have an opinion about everything.
Oh, well, you can have an opinion,
Yeah, but
but
and we've talked about that, the difference between an opinion and a conclusion based on facts. You can have an opinion about everything, but you don't have to share your opinion about everything with everybody.
well, or have an opinion, but hold it lightly.
Mm,
I mean, I have this opinion because I've heard this. If you've got more evidence or a better argument, I can change my opinion because an opinion is nothing.
yes, yes.
If I have knowledge, if I have an understanding, if I, hold these truths to be self-evident.
If I've reached a conclusion based on evidence and study and facts that have been checked and double checked and verified by multiple independent sources, yes,
Then
that's
at
one
least
thing.
you've got a position to argue from.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you can still change your mind,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
conclusions can be changed
Well,
too.
and that's the scientific process.
Exactly.
This is why, and when people don't understand theory, the meaning of scientific theory doesn't mean it's just an opinion. No, it means this is the best explanation we currently have for the facts, for the data, for the evidence,
Yes.
but it can be modified
Well,
as,
yeah, I've heard it said that a theory is something that thus far explains this phenomenon,
yes,
and it's repeatable.
yes,
So the theory is this, the theory works because every time we applied this principle, the same thing happens.
yes.
It's measurable, it's repeatable. That's scientific experiment, that's the scientific method. You must repeat it and get consistent results
Hmm.
by testing. So, yeah, so and like theory of gravity, right? I mean, we went,
That,
although some will argue we went to the moon
well,
by
yeah, some.
understanding how gravity works and
Well, and the gravity, the theory of gravity is modified from being, from what it was when it was first postulated, to the current understanding was that it's actually mass warping. It's an effect of mass warping space-time.
yes, true. But that's an expansion of what we know.
Yeah,
Doesn't contradict what we knew before, which is this is the rate of gravity and mass, the relationships of
recalculated. Yeah,
we
that
those formulas still hold,
in a
right?
vacuum, a cannonball and a feather fall at the same rate, right?
Right, exactly. So it's the those original theories weren't wrong. They just weren't completely understood, or at least they
Right.
were not as thoroughly understood as we believe they are now,
Yeah,
right?
I actually just heard a really interesting um, new line of inquiry, speculation, that rather than three dimensions of space and one of time, we actually are experiencing three dimensions of time and one of space. That space is a consequence of time rather than the other way around. Really
Okay.
interesting. Really
Hmm.
interesting. I don't claim to understand it, and I certainly don't understand the math behind it. Um,
Well, I'd had the three dimensions and time explained to me as clearly as I've ever heard it explained. And it's imagine a fly flying around in a room. That fly at any given time occupies a coordinate
mhm.
in three dimensions. But you can't tell where the fly is at any given time without that dimension.
Yes.
So okay, I get that. That makes sense. That's where the fourth
Yes.
dimension comes in. Because without a dimension of time, everything is static.
Right. Speaking of static, I manipulative underspecificity is a kind of verbal static, filling.
Nice segue, boy.
Thank you,
Nice.
thank you. Filling time, filling space, making it seem like someone has said something without actually committing to any position. Um, there's another philosopher, Paul Grice, who um, made a framework. No, it's become known as the Gricean maxims or Grice's maxims that are about their principles for your own conversation. I think it's useful in when you're in conversation with other people or you're observing a speech, or if you see if the other person is not observing those, that's an indication that they're using underspecificity or weasel words.
Or maybe
Or
they're
maybe.
just stupid.
Well, there's no shortage of that. I think it was George Carlin said that persons can be smart, but people are stupid. The more people you have, the dumber it is.
Yeah. Well, the
And
closer you get to the lowest common denominator, right?
yeah, yeah,
And low is pretty low.
yeah. So Grice's four conversational maxims. Uh,
Oh, wait.
yeah.
One thing I think is
Oh,
important
yes,
as we go into this. These are cooperative principles.
yes,
He defines them as if you are in a conversation where there's an understanding that the two or more people in that conversation are trying to reach some conclusion, or at least right share honestly that there's a sort of a virtuous rule in place with this
yes.
conversation. These maxims all apply.
And I have said before to people, I said before I have I'm absolutely willing to have a conversation about difficult subjects with people who ostensibly don't agree with me, have reached different conclusions, hold different opinions, different points of view. Absolutely willing to do that, but there are certain preconditions. One, courtesy. Two, we define terms and definitions. We start defining terms and definitions, terms. We have to agree on what words mean. So that, because often if you're using, people will use the same word to mean different things and different words to mean the same thing. And all you get is an argument, you get confusion. And so that's one of the things that before I'll, if we can't agree on what a word means or a phrase, and I've run into that a lot, where it said, this is what you're saying and this is what this means. No, I don't mean it that way. this is the definition of what this means. Yeah, but that's not how I mean it. Well, do you understand that how you're using it is not the common definition of a common understanding of what it means? Well, I don't care. That's how I mean it. Well, can you use a different word? No, that's what I. And the third thing is we have to agree on what credible sources of information are. And I was this was online, as you might expect. I pointed to peer-reviewed sources, and the response was, "Oh, peer-reviewed sources, you can't trust those. They're from colleges and stuff. You can't they're the worst. You can't trust that stuff. It's all a scam." Said we have no basis to continue this conversation if we can't agree on double-blind, peer-reviewed, repeatable research that has proven things. Then and you can't accept that. You say it's all made up, it's all a scam. We have no basis in conversation. So I those are some of my rules.
And those are all good. I get that, but I've also had the we have to define our terms. I've had it used as a rhetorical tactic to constantly ask someone to define their terms. And ignoring if the conversation or the evidence isn't going their way, it's a way to stop the conversation
Yeah.
and go back and send you off on a tangent, and then just arguing the definition of a term and
Yes.
not getting to the rest of the actual question.
And that means it's pigeon chess, you
Yeah.
know. So, yeah. So I agree, but any of these things um can be used in a manipulative way. Somebody can say, "Well, here are my peer-reviewed sources." Say, those are self-published or predatory journals. Those are not peer-reviewed. They're not credible. They're not accepted. Well, they're just as good as yours. Well, no, they're not. And then we're just,
Right.
you know, so not
You're
getting the
arguing
point.
over the validity of your sources, and the original question's lost.
Exactly. So, so yes, if a conversation is going to be cooperative, um, and I, I have had over the past several years conversations with people where I said, "Look, this is you why I start with because you never change anybody's mind by telling them they're wrong. I always start with tell me what you think,
Hmm.
how you got to that conclusion, and tell me what your facts are that led you to this." And so I'll start with that because you don't change somebody's mind. The best you can hope for is asking them questions so that to jumpstart their own critical thinking, if it hasn't been there, if they reached a conclusion without that, to try to get them to question their own thinking. I mean, we both question our own
Oh
thinking
yeah.
a lot. Fortunately, neither of us is ever wrong about anything, so it's easy, you know.
Well, I look at it the other way. My percentage of being right is so low that I hold my opinions very, very loosely. And
Yeah,
uh, I once I
I
come
was
to a conclusion,
joking, so
I
yeah,
of course, but once I come to a conclusion, I will argue the hell out of it.
yeah.
But it takes me a while. It takes me a quite a bit of experience to reach a really hard-held conclusion.
And we've talked about the idea of expressing an idea forcefully and expecting that other people will express their own ideas forcefully and that there's no animosity. You're just, you know,
Right.
you're trying to
Stating a
reach,
position.
yeah, and the reasons for it, and somebody else will say this and counter and so on, and together you reach some consensus that's better. And that's a process. That's one that people are not. that are unfortunately, with the loss of formal studies in rhetoric and logic, people are inexperienced with and view it as conflict and are not willing to do it. They view, or they will just shout at each other,
Right.
you know. So, um, so yes, cooperative principles. So there's the other presupposition is that we're going to have a cooperative conversation
Yeah.
and try to understand seek first to understand, then to be understood. We're going to try to understand each other. So Grice's cooperative principles, four conversational maxims in the categories of quantity, quality, relationship, and manner. So the maxim of quantity: make your contribution as informative as is required for the current purposes of the exchange, but not more informative than is required. So, as much information as is necessary, but don't give extraneous, unnecessary information that's not
Hmm.
relevant. That's quantity. And I've mentioned when I've taught courses that involved creative developing a creative brief, said the chief complaint of creatives when they would get a creative brief, which is a document informing them of the situation that they, as creatives in advertising, marketing, so on, are going to come up with a solution for. The chief
Right.
complaint is not enough information. The number two complaint is too much of the wrong information. So they're not getting information about the insights into the
Particular
potential
the market.
audience, the
Yeah.
market, the audience, the market conditions, the competitors, what's being said, what isn't being said, what the product differentiator. They're not getting all that kind of stuff, but they're getting things like the client's spouse's favorite color is green, so we have to use green, and
Yeah.
that's an actual example. So enough as informative as necessary required for the current discussion, but eliminate the extraneous things. Unlike our podcasts where there's a
Well,
lot of
yeah, but
extraneous stuff.
who says we're cooperating with anybody though?
Yeah. Um, and the second one, the maxim of quality, um, try to make your
That's
contribution one that is true. Specifically, don't say what you believe to be false, and don't say that for which you lack adequate evidence.
right.
So,
It's pretty clear.
yeah, it's very clear. Only state it if you have evidence for it, and don't lie. That's pretty clear.
You know, what I find as I'm reading through this over and over again is that this is like my journalism class.
Yeah.
These were the rules when you're writing a journal,
Mhm.
journalistically, when you're writing a newspaper article, when you are trying to, it's just the facts, no more than the facts, nothing false, everything is backed up with evidence. But so yeah, I think this is so let's keep going. I just wanted to point that
Yeah.
out that I feel
I
that
and
my
I
journalism teacher yelling these things at me.
I think unfortunately what I have seen, the trend I have seen in uh I'll call it news reporting, not journalism, but the trend I have seen over the years is it's rumored that
Yeah,
you see that, and man, that's a weasel word right there. It's rumored that people are saying, I mean, we're hearing that. We're hearing reports of this source says this. There's one source. Can you verify it? Other sources say other things. you're not quoting them, you're only citing this one source. And we know this source is compromised. Why are you quoting them? Well, they're the official source. They're the official source and they're compromised. Why why aren't you citing other sources?
Yeah,
Or at least stating this information comes from this source and this source is compromised, therefore the information is not is questionable. Like your focus is questionable at the
my
moment.
focus is questionable.
Yes.
There, looks good to me.
Well,
Although
maybe it's
I'm
my
getting a direct
eyes.
feed.
Maybe it's my eyes then.
Maybe I mean, it looks in focus on my end. I don't know what you're seeing, but I'm getting the direct feed, so I don't
Well,
know.
I've only had half of this, so there's no reason it's that blurry. Um,
And I
so
haven't had enough to blur my own edges, so I don't
oh,
think this
okay.
one is.
So the third one, the maximum of relevance, make your contributions relevant. So is it relevant to the conversation? And one thing that we try to do, we go off on tangents, but we always try to bring it back to or make it relevant to. We give a lot of
Right.
examples and personal experience, but we try to make it relevant to what we're talking about.
And we're not, again, we're entertainment as much as education here. So, and our stories are brilliantly entertaining. So I
They
don't.
are so entertaining, so entertaining. Um, and his fourth one is the maxim of manner. Be perspicuous.
Yeah, right. I love this whole, you know,
So
don't.
avoid obscurity of expression, right?
Yeah,
So be lucid, be clearly expressed, be understood, clearly understood. Avoid ambiguity, be brief, avoid unnecessary prolixity,
that's a new word for me, and I'm gonna hang on to that one.
prolixity, be orderly. So, um, and this is, be clear, be unambiguous, avoid weasel words, avoid manipulative underspecificity. He doesn't say it that way, but the the point of manipulative underspecificity is that that person practicing that is not entering in a cooperative,
Right.
collaborative exchange of interlocutors.
Right. Right. They are trying to gain something or put something over on you.
Hmm. Um,
Um,
for some
and
reason, well, what's the difference between manipulation and persuasion? Which, yeah.
that's a it. I would say it's a blurry line,
Well,
but I think the I would put the difference is that persuasion is you are honestly trying to bring someone over to your way of thinking.
mhm.
Manipulation is I want you to do something for me, and I'll tell you whatever I need to tell you so that you'll do it.
Yes. I would add to that, and this is coming out of a background in marketing, advertising, that manipulation involves selectively presenting information, often withholding negative information, contradictory information, presenting everything in the best light possible, or with puffery, which
Mm,
is puffery is claims so expansive it's obvious that they're for effect and not meant to be true, but some people will present those as if they are true. It's meant to and it can be intellectual or emotional. It's often more emotional. There's an emotional component to manipulation. Persuasion also can have an emotional component, but it is not it is presenting the I view it as presenting the truth in a memorable, interesting, and compelling way that
yes.
someone can connect with. And that's the art of persuasion. You're not lying, you are telling persuasion is often telling a story. It's creating persuasion is creating a connection between the person and the object of the persuasion, the goal of the persuasiveness. It's creating that connection. Manipulation is trying to force that connection by, or force that action without a connection by withholding information
Okay.
often, or presenting or presenting wrong information,
Well, yeah, that's what I
false
mean.
information. Yeah,
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing.
yeah,
I'll tell you whatever I need to tell you to
yeah,
get to solicit the response that I want.
yes, yeah. Um, um, so, um,
So we've gone to Ambrosius and Grice,
yes,
and I think we've kind of covered. And again, reiterating that the that Grice's is here. If you are entering into a conversation honestly and you want to have a relevant and um, cooperative conversation, stick to these things.
hmm,
They're not a guard against manipulation.
no,
They are they are behaviors that you should adopt if you are going to be an honest conversationalist.
yes. And so the thing to guard against the manipulative underspecification is to be aware of it when you hear it. So, um,
Be suspicious of
yes,
ambiguous terms.
yes, I will support this. Okay, in what way will you support this? Will you vote for draft and vote for legislation to in, increase this, add to this, make this? It reminds me of, actually, it just occurred to me, the language people are advised to use on resumes. They're advised to use action words.
Right.
Support is ambiguous. What is it? You supported this. What does it mean? Did
Yeah.
you
It could
organize
just mean,
it?
yeah, that's great.
Did you organize it? What did you achieve? What was your role? What specifically gives specificity to it? So, um, support is, yeah, it's too unspecified. It's too ambiguous. It can be many different things. It can be a lot or nothing. What did it mean?
It's
So
it is, however, better than saying, I will have to review all of the facts in the case and make a determination that is, most auspicious for that is truly weaseling. That's
yeah, yeah,
like refusing to answer the question whether do you support this bill or do you not? Well, I think the bill has some very important aspects to it, and I think there may be some conversations that we need to have going forward, and blah 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 blah
yeah.
blah.
The examples, and there are many examples recently of um, a representative or senator saying, "I won't support this," and then they're saying, "Well, I didn't agree with it, but we'll work on it going forward." And then saying, "I'm so disappointed that there's no further action on this. I wouldn't have support." You knew, you knew. What are you? What this is?
Or
You're trying to
at
have
least
it both ways.
you at
Yeah.
least had the opportunity to stand up and you didn't.
Yes. Yes. Clutch your pearls and go sit down and leave office and leave it to somebody who's actually going to say what they mean and do what they say.
Yeah.
So, yeah. uh, so, um, yeah,
So honesty, courtesy. I think courage sometimes it takes.
yes,
As we often come to courage as like I think courage is the central virtue in a lot of these things.
yeah. I think uh, and we've talked about that at length about the core virtues and their combinations and what it means. It's they're so intertwined. They're so reliant on each other. It's often difficult to say which is the central one. Can you be honest if you're not courageous? Can you be courageous if you're not honest with yourself? Can you, um,
Yeah.
can you persevere without courage and honesty? Can you, um, so many of them rely on each other. Um, so,
But I was just
oh,
wrapping that up in the
yeah,
virtues as we
yeah,
try and do and saying these are expressions of the virtues that we talk about. What the behaviors that we're discussing here come from a place of these virtues.
yes,
So
yes, they do.
that's that's how we justify that discussion here.
Well, I think increasingly, and there's many conversations that happen online rather than face to face.
Right.
And online discussions, uh, asynchronous online discussions, such such as in social media, where someone will post something and someone else will post it. And how many times have we seen someone post something and someone says, picks a word and says, this thing that you said, and they disagree with that, and then somebody else says, well, yeah, that doesn't mean what you think, and then somebody else will attack that, and the original post is lost, and it's a terrible way for having conversations. It's people screen courage, not actual courage,
Right.
and um, the point often is not getting to a cooperative understanding or gaining insight or increased knowledge or understanding or consensus. It's making scoring points. It's making
Yeah.
points. And unlike in the movies, the withering walkout line when some thing and then the person leaves and the other person is crushed and reconsidering their whole existence. Yeah, that doesn't happen.
No.
That doesn't really happen. Um, uh, so it's social media is a terrible place to try to have meaningful, in-depth, serious conversations about difficult subjects.
Yep.
It's just a terrible way to try to do that. Um,
30 years I've been saying social media is the devil.
yeah,
And here we are.
no, yeah. So, but you and I are having a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. And I very much enjoy these conversations
as do I.
and and we've been doing it for a little over 6 years now
Oh,
and
yeah.
have gotten almost 50 followers in that time.
I think actually we have a few more, and we do regularly now get some comments and questions
On I haven't seen on the website or on our YouTube
on
channel.
the YouTube on YouTube. And so,
I'll have to start exploring that more
oh yeah, I
regularly.
I go in and will comment and thank them and answer and so on. And so yeah, so
Okay. Well, so on that note, everybody, boost our numbers, subscribe, like, follow,
share,
share, tell all your friends,
comment, ask questions,
comment,
suggest topics. Yeah,
especially give
exactly.
us subjects. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, and until we hear from you online, um, be thou
a good night.
and true.